Oh, man. I was muted. I was muted the first 2 minutes. No one just heard that spiel. No one heard that spiel. We have to give it all over again. We have to give it right back again. I was just muted. The Boston Celtics, 133 to 129 on the Garden floor tonight against the Washington Wizards. And this game for the Boston Celtics, not particularly impressed at all from my perspective of the Boston Celtics performance tonight. Now they're the first. Now I feel like I have to reiterate this whole thing. I'm all off track right now. The Boston Celtics tonight, they reach 40 wins. They're the first team to reach 40 wins on the season, and they're playing a team who they're not even to 10 wins yet. The Washington Wizards, they're not even to 10 wins on the season yet. They're one of the worst teams in the entire NBA, and the Celtics let them come into the Garden and play next alongside them. They play down to their competition a lot for a long majority of this game, and yes, the Celtics pull away at the end. But looking at the lead tracker here tonight, the Boston Celtics, it's a lead tracker that this one against the Washington Wizards should be all green. And yes, in the fourth quarter, we see a lot of green in there, but oh my goodness, in the middle portions of this game, the Washington Wizards, look at those mounds for the Wizards. Look at them right there. And the Wizards, let's note this, 3 quarters in this game, 3 of the 4 quarters, the Washington Wizards outscore the Boston Celtics. And in that third quarter, the Washington Wizards, they score only 16 points to the Celtics 36, and that's enough to get the job done for the Celtics in a 4-point win against one of the worst teams in the entire NBA. Right here, this can't happen if you're the Celtics, because in multiple portions of this game, they felt comfortable. That's what you see on this lead tracker. They felt too comfortable within their own setting at home. It's the last home game in a 7-game homestand. And the Boston Celtics, look at the second quarter, the beginning of the second quarter. Look at the beginning of the second half right there. The Washington Wizards get out to almost double-digit leads after the Boston Celtics do establish their footing. Look at those little dips right there for the Celtics right before the rise for the Wizards. Right there, the Celtics should be establishing their footing and going ahead and establishing a lead in this game. Yet they let the Washington Wizards make their way back into the game, halt their runs, and even establish a lead of their own until the Celtics completely poured it on at the end when they decided to turn up the heat and turn up the Jets, and they really let the talent on the team lead them. And we've talked about that a lot this season on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show, and we even talked about it a lot on our 5-hour-long trade deadline special yesterday. If you guys haven't seen that already, go check that one out after post-game, of course. But we've talked about it a lot that the Celtics, their identity isn't quite there this season. You don't really feel the identity within their team. You look at a team like the Denver Nuggets, and yes, they were absolutely manhandled by the Sacramento Kings tonight, but they have a clear identity in their team and in their offense down the stretch. They're going 2-man game with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, and they're hitting cutters and they're hitting guys on the perimeter who can make open shots from 3. Well, the Boston Celtics, I believe there is somewhat of an identity forming within them, and I will say I'm giving them a little bit of leeway during the stretch because we are going into All-Star break. But during some of these games, especially at home, amidst the homestand, the Boston Celtics look like they're riding off of talent. They're not playing up to their standards. They're not engaging their opponent. They're not playing with intent every single night. And it's a problem in my eyes if this continues later on down the season. Now, a lot of people out there are really chalking this up to, All-Star break, it's in a couple of weeks. We're facing a couple of opponents who, the Grizzlies, the Hawks, the Wizards, not all that great, right? But this is a stretch where I want to see the Celtics go into All-Star break with some force, with more wins on their record. And that is the good part about this Celtics stretch is they're ultimately winning games, but the way they're winning them, you saw the lead tracker tonight. You can't let that happen against the worst team in the league because down the stretch, Tatum's still in the game. Kristaps Porzingis is still in the game. Derek White is still in the game. All of our players, Jaylen Brown is still in the game. Everyone down the stretch, our top 6, our top 5, they are in the game, and this should be a game in which they sit. This is a game in which they should rest. And it's not because the Boston Celtics let the Washington Wizards play. They let them play when the Washington Wizards, they're the worst team in the NBA. Well, top 5 worst team. I think that's debatable. We have the Charlotte Hornets, who we talked about yesterday on the trade deadline special, who exist, but the Washington Wizards are not far behind. And the reason they're one of the worst teams in the NBA is because they gave up an all-star talent, and really 2 all-star talents last offseason, one in Bradley Beal and the other Mr. Kristaps Porzingis, our player of the game tonight. Kristaps Porzingis, he was absolutely incredible against his former team, the Washington Wizards, tonight. 34 points, 11 rebounds, 1 block, 2 made threes on the night, 9 of 18 from the floor, 50%, of course. And look at that free throw mark, 14 of 14 from the free throw stripe. Kristaps Porzingis, this performance for Kristaps was ideal against his former team, because we are going to talk about the Washington Wizards more in this post game, but the Washington Wizards' size, athleticism, physicality, it's not there. Their roster isn't well-rounded in any of that, and it's why they're so bad this season. Kristaps Porzingis was able to take advantage of the mismatches given to him in this game and given to the Celtics, and the Celtics credit the guards in this game, Jrue Holiday, Derek White, even Jason Tatum at times. He had 8 assists tonight, getting the ball to Kristaps Porzingis down on the low block and forcing the mismatches down low, because not only did that help Kristaps to 34 points tonight, scoring over guys, also got him to the free throw line 14 times, made all 14 of his free throws. And we know, too, that creates opportunities on the perimeter for other guys to score from 3 and hit that deep ball. And we'll see it in breakdown later, because Kristaps Porzingis, he draws quite a bit of attention down on the low block, and tonight's matchup against the Washington Wizards was a matchup the Celtics needed to exploit their advantage of Kristaps Porzingis, and they did exactly that, and Kristaps executed to perfection in this game, specifically offensively. So Kristaps Porzingis, our player of the game tonight. I know a lot of other players could have walked away with this. Tatum, of course, 35 points tonight, 10 rebounds, 8 assists for him. There were moments in this game, however, 10 threes for Tatum on 22 shots. We've talked about this a lot this season, where we want to see Jason Tatum's ratio of 3s to 2s balanced to where you're taking way more 2s than 3s. We want to see the ratio be where Jaylen Brown's ratio is right now, where it's you're taking about 4, 5, 6 threes a game, somewhere around there. 7 if you really need to. But Tatum, we're seeing games where he's taking 8 threes in the first half, and that's just not going to slide whatsoever. And that's why, in my estimate here, he should not come away with player of the game, and that's why we should have given it to Kristaps. But don't get me wrong, Jason Tatum, especially in that fourth quarter, we saw that dip earlier for the Celtics, or rather that rise, depending on how you look at the graph. Jason Tatum was a huge part of the Celtics' resurgence in the fourth quarter, and was no doubt a massive player in this game down the stretch, and he always is for the Celtics. But in the fourth quarter, defensively, I thought Tatum got after it correctly. There are some plays, which we'll get at, where it's like, okay, why do you gamble here? Why do you cheat? And there are moments in which he kind of just let the rope go at the end of quarters. But I thought defensively in that fourth quarter, Jason Tatum and the entire team was engaged, and it led to deflections and transition opportunities in this game. And in that fourth quarter, Jason Tatum was able to get going down towards the rim. I mentioned 8 3-point attempts in the first half for Jason Tatum tonight. Well, he only took 10 on the night, so that means he took 2 3-point attempts in the second half. A lot better play in the second half from Jason Tatum than the first half. And yes, not the most ideal performance, but it's still quite a big performance for Jason Tatum. And this is why, folks, this is why I believe Jason Tatum, he has another level to go to. 35 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. And I don't feel like he played his best game. We're going to get into the breakdown later. There are going to be some shots that he made where they're not good shots. There are going to be some shots he missed where they're completely awful shots within the offense. They're coming off of isolation attempts, no passes within the offense, nothing, no action happening at all. And it's quite predictable what he's going to do. Step back three, sidestep three in someone's face with a contest. And those moments need to fade within Jason Tatum's game, and he needs to get downhill a lot more like we saw in the fourth quarter, because 35 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and we're talking about all this hoopla for Jason Tatum on the perimeter, taking these isolation attempts in the mid-range. Imagine what level Jason Tatum can go to if he eliminates some of these shots in his game. And that's really, it almost feels like the last hurdle for Jason Tatum, because there are a lot of other intangibles to Tatum's game where they've gone from needs development to improved to all-star to all NBA level. And now we're getting to shot selection. Can he just select some of his shots a little better on the floor? And the margin is so thin. It's so thin because he's already done that. He's already at an all-star level, and he's already at an all-NBA level. But can he be at an all-time great level? I believe Jason Tatum can be, and we see from a performance like tonight, this is not the best Jason Tatum performance in the world, yet he still comes away with the stat line that is justifiable for player of the game, no doubt, and also one that will get traction on networks who hate Boston. Absolutely hate him. But aside from Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis tonight, because they combined for 70 points, 69 points tonight, Kristaps Porzingis and Jason Tatum, they were the Celtic stars on the night. And of course, it really shifts from night to night, because we see one night it could be Jaylen Brown as the Celtics' best player. One night it could be Jason Tatum. There are nights Derek White has been the Celtics' best player, but we see Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis, the top two in scoring tonight for the Celtics. But Jaylen Brown, 18 points on the night, 7 rebounds, 3 assists for JB, 9 of 15 from the floor. And this is the kind of performance from Jaylen Brown we consistently see. If he's not one of the top two scoring 30 points on high volume, high efficiency, right? He's high efficiency on low volume. He only takes 15 shots tonight, makes 9 of them, and that's a percentage, looking at Jaylen Brown, 60% on the night, and he only went 0 of 1 from 3, so 14 shots from inside the arc, 1 3-point attempt. This is what we're talking about from Jaylen Brown, where he's levelizing his 2-point attempts and his 3-point attempts. He knows he's not going to force the 3-point shot. He knows he can get downhill, get to the rim, use his physicality, use his size, use his athleticism against a smaller team, and get to the bucket and be efficient when other guys such as Jason Tatum, such as Kristaps Porzingis, they really have it going tonight. Jaylen Brown, he doesn't have to force his shots from the perimeter. He doesn't have to force his shots one-on-one. He can get his own in the spaces in between Kristaps Porzingis and Jason Tatum, where he's going downhill, getting to the rack, getting easy opportunity buckets in transition or from cuts to the rim off ball. And that's where the Celtics team is so dangerous. Jaylen Brown could be a number one option. Jaylen Brown could be a legitimate number one option somewhere, and I think he's proving that with his play right now. This summer we had questions, okay, could he leave the Celtics? Yes, the Rockets were interested in him. You never know what could happen. He might go to Ime's squad, might become the top star there, might feel a certain way about Tatum. You never know, right? Comes into this season, paid $304 million, and it's like, all right, this season, the start was not great. Not great at all. And we were sitting there going, uh-oh, is this going to be an occasion where a player gets paid and just kind of fades off, right? Or is he going to turn it around because it's real early, right? It's early in the season. And Jaylen Brown, he took all of the critics, heard them, and completely changed his game for the better. And he knew what he needed to do in order to maximize his game. And that's not forced shots. And we're seeing it night after night now. Months later, he was doing this at the start of December, but now we're well into February. He's doing it every single night. He's not forcing shots. He's getting his shots in between where the Celtics opponent rather is letting him score, because Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, and even Drew Holiday, the defense is always focused on these other guys. All of a sudden, Jaylen Brown, he can be a third option on a night. Imagine how dangerous that is when you have a player who could be a legitimate number one option somewhere else. I think he's proven that this season in the maximization of his game. If you have that player on your roster as a number three like tonight, that's dangerous. And that's why the Celtics can win off of talent and win a 4-point game win. A lot of this performance, they were a little meh. They were very meh. But Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis talking about them. Drew Holiday also had a big night on big efficiency, 9 of 13 from the floor, 20 points for Drew Holiday, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists for Drew as well. And Drew Holiday continues to be now. Rob thinks Drew Holiday is the X factor of the Celtics. We talked about Kristaps Porzingis being the X factor of the Celtics. But I almost feel like on some nights, Kristaps Porzingis is the MVP of the Celtics, and Drew Holiday, he slots right into that X factor role, like we talk about, because 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists for Drew Holiday tonight. Without his scoring presence, the Celtics might not win this game. And Drew Holiday, we've talked about it many, many times. He's one of the better unconventional scorers in the entire league. Drew Holiday knows how to get his, like I mentioned with Jaylen Brown, kind of in between the edges. There are moments in transition where Drew Holiday is streaking down the floor and, oh, no one's covering Drew Holiday. Oh, just pull up for a three. Bang, hit it, wide open. Everybody's focused on, ooh, Tatum, Brown. Oh, Porzingis is coming down the lane. Drew Holiday, nobody's paying attention to him. There will be moments where ball's in Tatum's hands. He's driving down the lane. Drew Holiday gets the ball. Well, what is he doing with it? He's never stagnant with the ball. We've seen players come through the Celtics organization. We've seen players from other teams we've faced in the past where they get the ball, they dribble. They're not really going anywhere with their dribbling, and it becomes this ball-stopping, stagnant offensive play. And Drew Holiday simply doesn't contribute to that at all. And Derek White is the same way, where once they get the ball, they're attacking. They're bringing their physical bodies into you and attacking the lane and making something happen. And Drew Holiday is one of the best at getting into guys' bodies and finishing over them and even finding other opportunities for guys once he creates that space by being physical and getting into his defender. And Drew Holiday tonight, I'm loving that Drew Holiday feels just watching the games all the way through. Drew Holiday is one of the more engaged Celtics each and every night. There have been moments where the Celtics are just not engaged defensively whatsoever. I'm not going to call out names specifically, but you guys will hear names not being here. But Drew Holiday, he's a guy where you don't really see the engagement wane. Not at all. Jaylen Brown, you don't really see the engagement wane in the half court. We talked about in transition before, but in the half court on sets, we haven't seen it wane. And other guys, I think during the season, we've seen their engagement wane in certain moments of the game, but I think Drew Holiday, he doesn't really let moments like this right before All-Star break get to him where he's going, oh, I'm going to take tonight off defensively, or oh, I'm going to lower my intensity level tonight, or we're facing the Wizards. I can kind of coast this game. No, he's not playing in that manner whatsoever. He's making $40 million this season. He has a ring. He wants to win a title, and Drew Holiday knows what it takes to win a title. He already has a ring with the Milwaukee Bucks, and at this point in his career, he wants another one. He's paid. He's been here for almost 15 years in the NBA. He's made an All-Star appearance. He's done just about everything you can do in the NBA to feel satisfied with your career, and almost I want to say Drew Holiday could potentially go down as a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. But this player, he's not just walking into All-Star break. He's not just, I'm treading water before we get into this 2-week period where we're resting on the beach, right? Drew Holiday, he knows each and every single night the Celtics need to build good habits in order to go and win the title later on in the season. I believe there are some players right now who are just coasting just a little bit, but I don't feel as if Drew Holiday contributes to that problem, especially defensively. But moving on, I don't know if we want to do breakdowns yet. We're not. I don't know. I have a lot of breakdowns tonight because I feel like these may take a while. I'm not really certain. But the Celtics in this game, I believe a big reason why the Washington Wizards were able to be so close in this contest was the transition opportunities for the Washington Wizards and some of the turnovers for the Celtics. The Celtics 13 turnovers on the night. It's not unusual to see double-digit turnovers in today's NBA considering the fast-paced nature, more possessions in today's NBA than there was in the past. And typically we'd look at double-digit turnovers and go, that's a lot of turnovers. But now it's not entirely uncommon to see double-digit turnovers, but you still want to minimize your turnovers. And I thought 13 turnovers tonight for the Celtics. They caused the Celtics problems early in this game, and especially in the second quarter and third quarter at the beginning when the Washington Wizards grabbed another lead, because the Celtics, they allowed 36 points in transition tonight. 36 points in transition. The number one team in transition scoring this season is the Toronto Raptors. Okay? You know what number they average points per game in transition? 17.7. Okay? 17.7 points per game in transition for the Toronto Raptors. The Washington Wizards score 36 on the Boston Celtics tonight. And that's because the Boston Celtics turned the ball over 13 times and allowed the Washington Wizards to consistently run up and down the floor on the fast break and score when the Celtics simply didn't want to play transition defense, because I've been harping on it all January, and now into February. The Celtics transition defense has been awful, absolutely awful. And we've done it on Breakdown almost every single night. And we'll even have a couple of slides in here that symbolize it tonight where, ball is thrown away. Guys are looking at it. They're not running down the floor. They're not picking up the ball. I feel like we need to get into breakdowns because, my goodness, some of the transition this month, guys, this is what irks me. Guys go into post-game interviews, they go into their pressers, right after they got the towel over them and they got the microphone in their face, and they'll sit there and go, I pride myself on the defensive end of the floor. And I'm not saying one player specifically, because there have been multiple players on the Celtics squad who've owned up to the defensive end of the floor. And on some nights, the Celtics are completely elite and in the half court, completely flawless. But you have to play in transition. The Celtics in transition this season, or at least this past month, it's not going to cut it in the playoffs. It simply isn't going to cut it in the playoffs against teams who are going to run up and down the floor with you if you're not willing to run and defend in transition. Now, I know in the playoffs it slows down, and that's going to play into the Celtics' favor, and the Celtics can play multiple ways. But right now in January, the Celtics transition defense, 36 points to the Washington Wizards tonight. What are we doing? 17.7 points per game is the highest point per game margin in transition this season by the Toronto Raptors. The Washington Wizards essentially double that tonight. They do double that. My goodness. The Celtics, if they are going to be the best defensive team and they're really going to pride themselves on the defensive end of the floor, because I can see it in the half court. Don't get me wrong. I can see the Celtics priding themselves defensively in the half court. You have to do it in transition as well. That's a part of the game. As we've talked about other stars too, all-star players, it makes no sense why some players are in the all-star game not playing one end of the floor. It's the same thing, transition defense to half-court defense. You have to play in transition if you want to pride yourself defensively all around, because the Celtics do pride themselves in terms of their half-court defense. But I think we are going to get into breakdowns because we do have a lot of them tonight. And we don't have Franco's soundboard tonight. I'm a little sad we don't have Franco's soundboard with us at this moment, but I don't know, guys. Here we go. No music, but breakdown time. Here we go. So let's get into these breakdowns. First one coming up to you guys. This one, let's take the ticker down real quick. Okay. This one right here, This is a simple play for the Celtics, and this is where the Celtics can simply take advantage of the mismatch in size against the Washington Wizards. Right here, Derek White is coming up to set a screen on the wing for Kristaps Porzingis, and look who's right behind Derek White. Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is sitting right there behind Derek White, and Kristaps is going to come off this screen, and look at this. Right here. Sorry, guys. One more. Bam! Open bucket for Kristaps Porzingis, and this pass is a little late. It's a little behind him, I will say, but still, Jaylen Brown finds Kristaps Porzingis right here in the open lane, and Kristaps finishes with a wide open dunk, and that's just a simple play of taking advantage of the size, taking advantage of the Washington Wizards not really being engaged defensively whatsoever, and just letting Kristaps go down the lane and get himself an easy bucket. Going on to the next play here, the Celtics, this is really what frustrates me about Jason Tatum. Right here is what this is what should drive absolutely everyone crazy about Jason Tatum. It should drive everyone crazy. Jason Tatum is on DeLon Wright right here. DeLon Wright is 6'4", 6'5". Jason Tatum is a 6'10" forward, 225. Okay, DeLon Wright, the Celtics. It was a possibility. It was a possibility the Celtics traded for DeLon Wright at the trade deadline. Didn't happen. Still in the Washington Wizards. We face them tonight. 6'4", 6'5" guard, not the lengthiest guards in the world, not the most physical. And what is Jason Tatum doing right here? Attack this space. Look at the lane. Look at the lane. Look how much space is behind DeLon Wright right here. And what does Tatum do? He doesn't do anything to this right here. Jason Tatum just pulls up. Right here, he pulls up right in front of DeLon Wright, pulls up right over him, and that's an easy shot you can settle for. That's a 1,000% easy shot Jason Tatum can settle for because, yeah, I'm 6'10". DeLon Wright is 6'4", 6'5". I can just shoot over him right here. But is this an efficient shot, Jason Tatum? Yes, he made it, but is this an efficient shot when you have all this space right here? And if Jason Tatum attacks this space, look at this. If Jason Tatum is attacking the space, he's going to have options on the perimeter, or he is going to have Luke Kornet in that dunker spot, because if he goes and drives his body into DeLon Wright and goes baseline, Eugene Omory is going to have to come over and help. All of a sudden, Kispert, he's either going to have to cover Kornet, or he's going to stay out on the perimeter on Pritchard. Kornet's going to have an open dunk, or Jason Tatum's going to have a wide open corner three. But here's why I mention this. Both of those options, either a Kornet dunk or a Pritchard wide open corner three, those are both statistically more efficient shots than Jason Tatum pulling up contested right here. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. And I understand Jason Tatum made this shot, and I'm happy he did. And yes, he can settle and shoot over DeLon Wright. But the options in which he can create if he drives are a higher percentage than this shot. They're more optimal than this shot. And this is what drives you crazy about Jason Tatum. And he does it again on this next opportunity right here. Jason Tatum, this spacing, first of all, for the Celtics. What are we in the 80s? Look at the Washington Wizards defense right here. What is going on? Are we in the 80s? Look at Drew Holiday. Look at Pritchard. Look at Kornet. They're all in that little boxed area over on the right side of the floor. Jason Tatum, he's not on the perimeter. Sam Hauser, congrats. You're the only person spacing on this particular play. Jason Tatum right here, he can attack this. He can either bring this out or attack this. The Celtics, they need to set this up a little bit better for sure. But what does Jason Tatum do? Just shoots right over him. And this is way more contested than the last opportunity over DeLon Wright. This one, Jason Tatum is fouled and goes to the free throw line and does make this bucket. And that's what Jason Tatum, he can make these type of shots. He can make the difficult type of shots and look like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant doing so. But this is not the attempt we want from Jason Tatum. This is not the attempt. This is not the spacing. This is not the offensive set we want to see. This is not a play we're going to run in the playoffs and see success upon consistently. We're just not. And running it against the Washington Wizards, yes, we can get away with it, but we're not going to play the Washington Wizards every single night. And these are the type of plays that drive you crazy about Jason Tatum when he has this mismatch on a guard like this. And that is DeLon Wright again, if I'm not mistaken. Next play here. This is really what got the Celtics in trouble in transition and turning the ball over and it leading to transition opportunities. Right here, Drew Holiday, he has Tyus Jones sealed in the post. Pass it to him, okay? That entry pass, you have it right here. He has him sealed. Pass it right to the right of him. He's open to the right, okay? What does Jaylen Brown do right here? Look what happens. Awful pass. Awful entry pass. Tyus Jones kind of pulls the chair on him a little bit here. Credit to Tyus Jones on that defensive opportunity, but Jaylen Brown, terrible entry pass. And what happens from this opportunity? The Celtics, they're in terrible position because look at the Wizards' bodies. Look at Adria. Look at Kuzma. Look at Coulibaly. All of those guys are kind of leaning up the court. Drew Holiday is going backwards, or going towards the Celtics rim. Derek White, he's going to the corner. Cornette's going to the corner, and Tatum is turned towards the rim as well. So the Wizards right now have the leverage going up the court as the ball's being thrown away. And what happens from this opportunity, moving along, you get a 4-on-2 and a wide open 3-point opportunity for the ball handler, which is Corey Kispert right here, one of the better 3-point shooters in the league. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they have to defend the cuts and defend the corner threes, and no one defends ball here because it's a 4-on-2 opportunity, and the Washington Wizards simply get a wide open 3 out of this, and this is part of the 36 points in transition for the Washington Wizards, and it started by an absolutely awful entry pass by Jaylen Brown on the other end. Moving along here, we have another one where in transition it started by a turnover. Now this pass right here, Kristaps Porzingis gambles on this pass entirely. He tries to thread the needle. If you notice this play right here, Jason Tatum, he's cutting towards the rim, and Porzingis is throwing that pass to Tatum, and he's trying to thread that needle, and he just simply doesn't. He simply doesn't make the pass, throws it away. And what happens on this opportunity, this is really what's just outrageous about the Celtics transition defense. The Celtics should have good leverage going up the court on this, but they don't because of how they hustle up the court and how they match up and the effort in which players are giving. Derek White saw the ball. Look which way Derek White's head is turned right now, to the ball. Okay? He saw the ball thrown away. He saw it, and he immediately turns his head. And he's going up court right now. Jordan Poole's going up court. Drew Holiday's going up court. The Celtics should have leverage. Look at Kristaps Porzingis. This is about a 3-on-3, 3-on-4 opportunity, but the Celtics should have some leverage here. And instead, Derek White's head is turned, and going up the court, instead of sprinting back, Derek White just kind of galloping up the floor, kind of looking back at the ball. And why is he running towards the corner? Why is Derek White running towards the corner? You have to sprint back to the top of the key and get ball. You have to stop the ball right here. And Tyus Jones is going to be covered by Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is going to be fine on Tyus Jones. Kristaps Porzingis, he's going to have to cover the cut towards the rim. And Jaylen Brown, he's really going to have to sprint back into this play to defend a corner 3 on the left side of the floor if you're looking at it from the Washington Wizards perspective. But right here, Derek White needs to get ball. Someone, please, turn your head, please. Derek White, please. Oh my goodness. This is absolutely inexcusable to do this in transition. And I mentioned earlier, the Washington Wizards, 36 points in transition tonight. This is why. Derek White, you have to sprint back to the top of the key, stop ball. What does he do? He sprints back to the free throw line. Wide open 3. How do you let that happen? The Celtics have this covered. The Celtics should have this covered. And Jaylen Brown not being on the screen yet is egregious as well. Why? He should be on the screen by now. He was standing in the corner alone watching the entire play. Why is Jaylen Brown not on screen yet? Makes no sense whatsoever. This is a transition play, transition defensive possession the Celtics simply need to be better at. Moving along, the Celtics, this Jason Tatum possession, this is where Jason Tatum, he's a great defender. I'll give him that. But this is a play where Jason Tatum, it makes no sense before half. The Washington Wizards are on a run. And why do you need to cheat right here? Jason Tatum is cheating at the ball right here. He's swiping at the ball. And let me tell you, if Jason Tatum wasn't Jason Tatum, he was a player making, say, $15 million a year, $20 million a year, $10 million a year. This is a foul. This is a straight-up foul. The way Jason Tatum's defending right now, it's a foul. And he lets Coulibaly gain leverage on him defending like this because he's all up in his grill, and he's not in good defensive stance. He's way too up into him. He's gambling for the ball. He's swiping at the ball right now. And this, to me, if he's not a star, is going to be a foul every single time. The reason it wasn't called is because it's Jason Tatum on Bilal Coulibaly, who's a rookie. And right here, Coulibaly gets right around him, and Kristaps Porzingis isn't helped to prevent a layup. But look what happens. Wide open corner three for Kyle Kuzma, who's not a bad three-point shooter. So defensive possessions like that, they need to fade for the Celtics. And this one as well. This is right before halftime. This is the last point. You see 5.6 seconds left on the clock. Defend for 5.6 seconds, please. 5.6 seconds. Can you please defend for 5.6 seconds? And it's not even that because it's 5 seconds. It's 5. You actually have 0.6 on the clock after this possession. But what? Look at Kristaps Porzingis. What are you doing? Well, who are you defending? Where are you? Look, Kristaps Porzingis is literally defending the Wizards head coach right here. Look at him. He's not engaged whatsoever. 5 seconds left in the half. There's 5 seconds left. The Wizards are up by 4 right now. And what happens on this opportunity? Kristaps Porzingis completely loses his man, who happens to be a solid three-point shooter in Deni Avdija. And this is wide open. Absolutely wide open. What are we doing here? Kristaps Porzingis, what are we doing here? Defending nobody. You have to get over here. He's setting the screen. You have to get over on this. What? There's no reason Kristaps Porzingis should be over on the wing right here. This is just terrible. This is just absolutely terrible. And it's right before halftime. At 5 seconds. Defend for 5 seconds. That's all we're asking. And, of course, the wide open three as we progress this along right here. But for the pitfalls of Kristaps' defensive moments at times tonight, Kristaps was fine defensively in a large majority of this game, and that was one play right before half where the Celtics and himself just need to be way more engaged than they were. And that's when the Wizards were going on a run too, and it was 71-64 going into half after that, and that just can't happen. But right here, coming out of half, this is what we want to see out of the Celtics and Kristaps Porzingis taking advantage of the mismatch down low, because on this attempt, Kristaps Porzingis has about 5, 6, almost 7 inches right here. I believe it's Coulibaly behind him on the low post, and Jrue Holiday gives it to him. And Kristaps Porzingis, he goes to work right here. But look at the eyeballs on Kristaps Porzingis. Look at Tyus Jones. Look at Kyle Kuzma. Look at Deni Avdija. Look at Jordan Poole even swiping at the ball right here. Kristaps Porzingis, he's going to go straight to the rim and go up on his mismatch. But look at the eyeballs. If he doesn't want to finish over this, because he can, and he did, Kristaps Porzingis, options. Jrue Holiday right there. Jaylen Brown on the perimeter. Jason Tatum, no one's really paying attention to him. And we know off the first pass to the perimeter, maybe it's not the first pass that leads to an open three, but the second from the defense collapsing and needing to rotate. Kristaps Porzingis drawing all this attention in the low post, being one of the most efficient low post scorers in the entire NBA. This is what can really open up the Celtics offense and what gives the Celtics a completely different look from what they've had the entire Tatum and Brown era. And this next play is much of the same thing. This is a different play. Drew Holiday gets it to him yet again, and this is a completely different play where look at the eyes. Every single eyeball is on Kristaps Porzingis right now, and Jaylen Brown's open right there. Drew Holiday, you can say he's going to be probably open. Denny Advia going down towards the rim. And every single Wizard is looking at Kristaps Porzingis right now. And Porzingis on the mismatch just goes straight up over him, misses the shot. But this is where Porzingis' size, athleticism, and physicality comes into play. And the improved physicality, let's also disclaim that as well, bounces off the rim and Kristaps goes up, grabs it, and dunks it. So he puts back his own attempt. And Kristaps Porzingis, this is what makes him such an elite player in the NBA, along with his three-point ball and his perimeter ability as well. Right here, this is what makes Jason Tatum an elite player in the NBA. This Jason Tatum being a 6'10 locomotive. This is why we want to see him go downhill. And this is in the second half when Jason Tatum started to go downhill a lot more. Jason Tatum comes off the screen here, the high screen and roll with Kristaps Porzingis. He sees Kuzma on him, and he goes, Kuzma, you're the same size as me, but I'm stronger than you. I'm faster. I'm more athletic. I'm taking you right to the hole right here. I'm taking you right to the hole because Kuzma, not even a chance. Not even a chance. Jason Tatum blows right by him like he's a 6'3 guard and Kuzma's a 6'10 lunky center. And Jason Tatum gets right down the lane and dunks all over Kyle Kuzma. And this is what makes Jason Tatum so elite in the NBA, makes him an all-NBA level player. And this is why we want to see Jason Tatum go downhill a lot more, is because Kyle Kuzma is 6'9", but Jason Tatum, he had the IQ to recognize, Kyle Kuzma, I understand you're the same size as me, right? But you're not as strong as me. You're not as fast as me. You're not as athletic as me. I'm going to take you straight off the dribble right now. I'm going straight downhill, and I'm banging this right in your face because you're not going to be able to get up on this level and block this because you're not fast enough. You don't have the verticality. You don't have the athleticism to come up here and meet me. And that's why Jason Tatum, he needs to approach the game like that every single game, every single possession. The settling on the mid-range shots and from three, those aren't the high efficiency shot. Those aren't the high efficiency shots in his game. This is the high efficiency shot because look at this. This is a dunk. This is a straight dunk. This is almost a 100% opportunity right here for Jason Tatum. And it's caused by him high screen and roll with Kristaps Porzingis and getting downhill against somebody he knows he can attack. And that's almost every single player Jason Tatum faces in the NBA. You can look at every single defender Jason Tatum comes across and say that should be somebody Jason Tatum is going at and putting his elbow and his shoulder into and attacking and banging right into his chest. There are so many defenders out there Jason Tatum can attack. And Kyle Kuzma, he's 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", almost the same size as Tatum, but yet still not big enough, not strong enough to go and defend Tatum off the dribble and going downhill. Told you we had a lot of breakdowns tonight. We still have a lot more here going down the list. This one comes late in the third quarter here. This is actually amidst the Celtics run, and this is where the Celtics need to be engaged more defensively. And this is where you look at it and go, oh, is the team really just coasting to All-Star break? Are they just kind of walking into All-Star break? Because this defensive possession right here, Al Horford, look at where he's standing. Al Horford needs to be way more active in getting up on this because right here, Eugene Omri, who's cutting towards the lane and cutting towards Kristaps Porzingis, he screens Derek White. And Derek White, credit to Derek White, he gets over that screen and defends this Corey Kispert potential three. Kispert, like I said earlier, like I mentioned, he's one of the better three-point shooters in the league. Derek White gets over the screen, defends it well. But Al Horford, he's caught ball watching right here. Look, ball and man. He's caught completely ball watching. His man's cutting towards the wing. He's posted up there on the low block. And this is where Al Horford, if you're going to do this, you have to tag the roller towards the rim here. You have to tag the cutter if you're going to stand there near the low block. He doesn't tag the cutter, nor does he defend his man. And what happens from this? What happens? Look at that. Too late. And wide open three-point attempt. This is actually the next play. My bad. But wide open three-point attempt right here by Landry Shamet, who we all know is quite a solid three-point shooter in his own right. Just because Al Horford fell asleep and was watching the ball. That's where you just need to be more engaged defensively. And we know how elite Al Horford can be defensively. But in a game against the Washington Wizards on February 9th, how engaged is Al Horford and the rest of the Celtics defense on this possession supposed to be? And the next play you guys kind of already saw here. This one is the most egregious of the night. This one is the most egregious play of the night, and it's the most laughable play by far. Kristaps Porzingis, please, just gain leverage right here. You have the mismatch. You have the mismatch at the top of the free throw line. You have almost a foot on this mismatch. Kristaps Porzingis, please gain leverage. He takes forever to gain leverage on this play, and he does at some point in time right here. I believe that's Landry Shamet on him. Kristaps Porzingis, this is the easiest pass in the world to Kristaps. And the play before, he's just kind of nonchalantly getting into this, not really posting up his man with intent. Finally gets into a stance, and it's really not that deep at all. Jason Tatum, this is the easiest pass in the entire world to Kristaps Porzingis. And yes, Porzingis could have made it a little bit better by getting deeper there and spreading himself out, making himself more available towards the perimeter. But this pass is the worst pass in Celtics franchise history. Oh my goodness. Look at that ball. That's not even close. That's not even close to Kristaps Porzingis. Jason Tatum threw the worst pass in Celtics franchise history. I don't know if you can find a worse pass than this. The relative to the easiness of it and where it was on the floor and the spacing and everything about this pass. This is just completely awful. And look what happens off of it. Look at Jason Tatum over there. Jason Tatum is hands in the air. Look at that. Jason Tatum is going, what? He's going, what? Why is he going, what? Jason Tatum is the one who threw that awful pass, and he's looking at Porzingis going, what happened? What happened? Porzingis, meanwhile, is looking at Tatum going, what happened here? And while all of this is happening, Tatum should be way ahead of this play. Jason Tatum should be way ahead of this play because he threw the ball away. He knows the ball is going to be thrown away here. Corey Kispert is clearly going to steal this ball. Jason Tatum needs to get ahead of this play because the Celtics, if they're not careful, if you look at the arrangement on the floor, it's going to be a 3-on-2 or even 4-on-2 opportunity. And look what happens. Because Jason Tatum's just standing there, wide open dunk in transition, wide open dunk. It didn't even need to be a 3-on-2. And look, more Celtics are here for the rebound at the end of the transition opportunity. Yet it's a wide open dunk. This should never be a wide open dunk. How is this a wide open dunk when this is the arrangement of players? Look at Tatum. Put your arms down and run. Run. What is happening? You have to run on this. You've thrown the ball away. You know this ball is going to be transition down the floor. You know it's going to be a fast break opportunity for the Wizards. And what happens? Wide open dunk. Wide open dunk. And there are even 3 Celtics down there. This should not happen. It should not happen. And it's happened so often for the Celtics in transition this entire month, or rather last month into this month now in February. Moving on to the end of the game, this is where the Celtics, I'm irked by the end of the game for specifically the mood of how the Celtics approached the last 5-6 minutes of the game. 5-6 minutes left, the Celtics go up about 10, 12, right? Go up about that margin. And we're really feeling, oh yeah, we're coming out with this win. There's no way that the Washington Wizards, they're coming back from double digits down with 5 minutes left to go We've made our run. We're going to win this game, right? We're at home, TD Garden, everybody's going nuts. Why is that the mood when there's 5 minutes left in the game? 5 minutes. There's 5 minutes left in the game, and that was the mood. It was, oh, we're gonna float towards a win. There's 5 minutes. The NBA is a volatile sport with the amount of possessions, the amount of threes taken, and the pace of today's game. Teams can put themselves back into a contest quite quickly. And right here, the Celtics, they need to be more engaged on this defensive possession, because right here, you have to pick what you're going to do. You either have to pick Jason Tatum. He's either going to stay on his man, or Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is either going to defend the ball handler. Jason Tatum's going to defend the roll man here, or they're going to switch this, and Jason Tatum comes over and defends the ball handler, and they switch this. Instead, they don't communicate this whatsoever. Both guys take the roll man. Jaylen Brown doesn't jump out on the ball. He takes the roll man. Jason Tatum doesn't jump out on the ball here. They're both dropped, and what happens? Tyus Jones, this is an open three for Tyus Jones at the end of the game with 2 minutes left, and the Celtics are up 8. After this, the Celtics are up 5 with 2 minutes left. 2 minutes. We've seen Northern Iowa versus Texas A&M, folks. I know that was college, but we've seen that happen. And that was way less than 2 minutes and way more than 5 points. This is why you have to continue to engage yourself down the stretch of games. And even right here, this is the last breakdown as we enter the fourth quarter, and this is where the Celtics, this should have been a runaway game. Guys should have been resting. Instead, Jason Tatum's going downhill right here. If you attack this into Kyle Kuzma right here and you attack the lane, you're going to have a wide open attempt for Jaylen Brown or Kristaps Porzingis. And instead, Jason Tatum, he does attack this, but he tries spinning in the lane, and Jason Tatum, the ball's poked away from him. It's completely poked away from him. And I'm realizing the last screenshot here on the entire breakdown isn't in here. But you're gonna have to trust me on this one. Jason Tatum dries the lane on this one, and he'll have open opportunities for Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown on the perimeter. And what happens is Jason Tatum goes into the lane, doesn't really see the help man over there, Coulibaly, runs right into him, spins, loses the ball, transition opportunity for the Wizards. They score. It's a closer game, and the game's not over. This can't happen. This can't happen if you're the Celtics. Moving forward, it just simply cannot. It can't. If we're going to consider this team an elite basketball team, we can't see these mistakes happen over and over and over again, because we've seen them in January, we've seen them in February, and I'm going to give the team some leeway right now and say some of these mistakes are surely due to the time right now before All-Star break. Because let's face it, this season, it's been long. It's been long so far. We're more than 50 games in. And at this point, I'm sure legs are tired. Legs are tired. Guys want to get to the All-Star break. Guys want the rest. And we want to get underway towards the second half of the season, or the final stretch of the season. We want to get to that point. I understand. But they have to play. They have to keep developing habits until that point, because there are still more games until the All-Star break. There are. And right now, the Celtics, this is time for them to repetition their play over and over and over again, whether it's defensively or offensively, implementing offensive sets, defensively, gaining a cohesion with each other. This is the time to continue development. Yet the Boston Celtics, there's moments where they play down to their opponent. They let their effort wane. They don't get after it in transition. half court's been all right. I will say half court defense outside of there's one game in which it was particularly awful. I believe it was the Grizzlies game where we played nobody, played two standard players, and one of them was traded this week. Outside of that game, the half court defense has been all right, but transition, 36 points for the Wizards tonight. Come on. Come on. But I do want to talk about the Wizards just a little bit because the Washington Wizards, they're an interesting team. For how bad they are an interesting team. You do look at some names and go, those are names that would surely suit a contender elsewhere if they were to ever fall on a contender. But how are we going to ever extract them from the Washington Wizards? And what are the Washington Wizards exactly going to do with some of these names into the future? And one of them I wanted to touch on tonight is Denny Advia, because he is a player I want to see on a winning team. He's been on a perpetually bad Wizards team his entire career. And I believe Denny Advia, if he finds himself on a contender somewhere, we could see his career blossom into 10-year, 15-year veteran. Maybe he wins multiple championships as the third or even fourth best starter on a roster next to a team who knows how to play next to each other. Because I believe out of every player on the Wizards, right, Abdia gives me this man plays the right way, but he's playing with many other players who either don't have the correct intangibles to compete with the rest of the league, or he's playing with a bunch of players who might be considered goofy out in the NBA universe. And that's been his whole career so far. And tonight against the Boston Celtics, 7 of 10 from the floor in 41 minutes, yet 24 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Also 7 of 8 from the free throw line. I think Avdia, if he finds himself on a contender, I think you could see him be that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope type of player. Now, I know he's not a guard and he's not going to play the same type of role as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but I can see him being that third, fourth best starter on a championship team, depending on which night it is. Somebody can hit an outside shot. Somebody can get downhill and go towards the rim, draw fouls, get to the free throw line, hit free throws, make quick decisions, make the right decisions for others as well. I think he's an extremely smart player. He knows what positions and where to attack at what times. That's certainly valuable in the NBA. And when you see players like that exist out in the landscape, you want to typically target him because not only is Denny Advia a high IQ player, he has length, he has size, and he's going to draw mismatches on some offensive possessions, and he can defend and switch on defense as well if he were to slot into a team. I'm picturing, say, the Boston Celtics maybe somewhere in the future, way down the line. I think he's a player that could certainly benefit on a better team, and a better team could benefit having him on the roster. Denny Abdia, that is. I believe he's a player that we'll be hearing a lot more from in the future once he's inevitably shipped out of Washington, because I don't see how on his current deal, his deal goes. I believe his deal. That's why the Celtics, he's a poison pill player, so the Celtics realistically likely weren't going to go after him during this trade deadline. But his deal, yeah, I believe he's on a 3-4 year deal right now that descends. It's either a 3 or a 4. It descends, right? Descends at the end of it. I always love contracts that descend because you can play well one year and the next year we're paying you less and the cap's higher. Like that's a deal for a team. And Abdia, he's on a descending contract, and it's not really that bad of a deal whatsoever. It's not even over 20 million going ahead into the future. And I believe he could be a third or fourth best player on a championship squad or on a starting rotation, that is. Maybe one day. I don't think he's going to be your third star. Let me clarify that. But I think he's going to be a really high-level starter for a winning team. And if he's under that deal into the future that's descending, you have to explore that if you are a winning team, if you're a contending team. And I think Washington, I think they may have the management in place smart enough to know, okay, we don't want to let this guy go, because the management in Washington is the same management who's Wait, I might be wrong on this. I was gonna say Tim Connolly. He might be in Minnesota now, so I'm not gonna get into this. But Washington, either or, they have to recognize the value in Denny Avdia, and if a contending team can pry him away, that'll certainly be interesting. But I think he's a player to watch out for in the future. We don't hear much of him now outside of, oh, he's mad at Jordan Poole, or oh, he's not happy with Kyle Kuzma. We don't hear too much of the Wizards and Avdia, but he's a player I believe could certainly contribute to a winning team later on down the line. A high IQ player with a lot of length, a lot of versatility, who could certainly contribute. But looking outside of Abdi, he's one of the Wizards' younger players, still in the last year of his rookie deal. But other players, I don't really know where this Wizards squad is going. Other players they have on their roster, Koulibaly, the Wizards announcing team, Drew Gooden, and I apologize, I do not know the name of their play-by-play announcer, but they were pretty high on Koulibaly, and I can see it within his game. They very big, very versatile player defensively and offensively. Has a lot of length, can get downhill. Do question the shooting a little bit. He started the game 2 of 9, and even tonight he was 4 of 12. He made 5 attempts at the free throw line out of 5. He did have 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. But I believe that could be a player that could develop into something. But we talked about this on the trade deadline special. Some of these players, we expect them like, ooh, Koulibaly, could he turn into a forward like Jason Tatum or a forward like Paul George? Like same thing with Brandon Miller. Can he be a Jason Tatum, Paul George level player? Jason Tatum and Paul George, they were on winning squads and gained opportunity next to other good players, and they were ushered along gradually into stardom. Well, these players, Koulibaly, Brandon Miller, they're on awful teams right now, and I don't believe the developmental system in which they're under with these bad teams do anything good for them. Same thing with Jalen Green. The first 3 years of his career with the Houston Rockets did nothing for him. It did absolutely nothing for Jalen Green to be on a bad team 3 years in a row. Yes, he got a lot of reps, and that's good, but there's no establishment. There's no teaching from veterans. There's no teaching from head coaches who I've been there before in the playoffs or been to the NBA Finals. I'm sure that some of these squads have been laced with 1 or 2 or 3, but the overall presence is not abundant whatsoever. And the Washington Wizards right now, Koulibaly, he's a player where if he's on a winning team, if he's on a better roster and developing and gradually coming along, you're looking at him and going, oh, this could be quite the player. But he's with the Wizards, and I hate to say it, but Abdia could be another one of these players where if he falls into the right situation, say Golden State takes him second overall in 2020, right, over James Wiseman. It was a conversation at the time. Abdia was taken ninth overall. He did fall all the way to the Washington Wizards. Could he be an all-star level player with a better team? And I feel like the Golden State Warriors. Maybe that's a bad example because we've seen other players, Kuminga, Wiseman, Jordan Poole, not exactly able to develop the young players well, but you know my point on Abdia. Could it be he's better elsewhere with the Wizards? I fear that for Koulibaly as well. Could he potentially not reach his maximization of his NBA career because he's on a bad team who just cannot figure out their establishment whatsoever until, oh, he's out the door. He's on another team and he's now, say, the sixth or seventh best player on a roster or the fifth best starter instead of being a star level player. That could certainly happen. And these are the crucial years as well in an NBA player's career. The first 3-4 years, really, that's a crucial developmental period. If you're on a bad team consistently, if you're injured during that time, we've seen with other players in the past, Romeo Langford, the most notable one in Celtics Nation. Aaron Nesmith, he wasn't injured, but he wasn't getting any minutes early in his career. That can stunt your development. And if you're in a better situation, we saw Aaron Nesmith, look at what he's doing in Indiana right now. That he's developing a lot better than he did in Boston just because of the opportunity there and the establishment that does exist in Indiana to be a good team. Right now with Washington, Charlotte, some of these other teams, Portland, I'm a little worried for their franchise and some of their players who I believe could be star players in other situations if developed correctly. but yet they're with the Wizards. They're with the Hornets. How are they going to develop the star intangibles if there's no establishment behind them? And Koulibaly, I'm hoping that's not the case for his career, because you do see the talent, and you saw a little bit of it tonight despite his shooting line of 6 of 18. He was 4 of 12 from 3. He was 6 of 18 from the floor. I believe I said he was 4 of 12 earlier. Jordan Poole, I want to talk about him real quick because unfair treatment award goes to Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole is not a terrible player. And tonight he was, 7 of 19 from the floor. And it's not like his shooting line was gaudy or he even had like an amazing game, because he was 7 of 19 from the floor, 36.8%, 3 of 10 from 3, 30% on the night, of course, and 19 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds, and a steal. Jordan Poole, he's not a star level player. He's not an all-star and all-NBA level of player. I'm not advocating for that whatsoever. And his deal, I'm going to go ahead and say, is one of the worst deals in the NBA at this current moment. But unfair treatment award goes to Jordan Poole, because this is another player, I believe now, all of a sudden, the development within his career, he's still young. He's 24 years old. I believe he's not your number 1. He's not your number 2. He's probably not even your number 3. He's probably a good 6th man. Probably a good Jordan Clarkson level of player, right? Why couldn't he have been that in Golden State? Golden State burning the bridges with Jordan Poole, trading him for Chris Paul, who's 37. You traded a 24-year-old for a 37-year-old, Golden State. I mean, wake up. Wake up. Jordan Poole should have been the 6th man of the future for Golden State. That's the role he should play. Because off the bench, he'd be a fine player. Offensively, as a spark plug, can even get after it defensively sometimes. And I know tonight you could pull out possessions where Jordan Poole, he's being cooked. He's being absolutely cooked. And there's definitely a lot of blame going on him, sure, because he's the player, he's the individual. But also in this situation, if you were playing on a night-to-night basis, say you're playing in front of the Garden crowd, right? Would you be defending at a higher level? Would you be defending at a higher level if you weren't 9 and 41, right? 9 and 42 after tonight? Probably. So I'm not going to totally trash on him for his defense this year, because I believe he should be a player who's valuable to a winning team elsewhere. He should not be the top usage ball handler on the Washington Wizards or any team for that matter. You can't have it. And that's what's unfair about this, is that people think, oh, Jordan Poole should be a star. And, oh, he shoots 0-5. He's being booed from his own crowd. He's a bench player. He should come off the bench. He's a good bench player. And his contract, I understand, could potentially – is that even a realistic possibility of him being a bench player with his contract? Could a team even do that? But it's unfair, I believe, the judgment of Jordan Poole, because everyone is judging him upon, oh, this man is awful. This man is goofy. This man gives us meme content every single night. He's on an awful team who gave him the keys to the car along with Kyle Kuzma, despite both of them being glorified bench players. Is that really their fault? I know we get into, oh, yeah, well, they think they're star players. They think they're all this and that. It's the voices around them. It's the voices around them. It's the development around them. Washington doesn't have the establishment right now. Golden State, they didn't want to have the establishment. They don't have the establishment, clearly, to develop young players. And Jordan Poole, from that metric, unfairly treated amongst a lot of NBA players. Still think he can be very, very good for a team later on down the line. And this Wizards experience, it's going to be a time in his career he goes on the JJ Redick podcast 4 years from now, and we laugh about it. We go, I'm contributing. I'm like the 6th man on the Utah Jazz, and we're like the 6th seed in the West now, and we're all good. That's going to be the conversation around Jordan Poole. He's going to be a good bench player somewhere later on in his career. We're going to laugh about this time where he was completely overpaid in Washington and the number 1 option. And hopefully this portion of his career doesn't destroy the rest of his career in that regard. Because there are moments in NBA players' career where you're overpaid, you're thrown into this situation, and all of a sudden, no other team ever wants you ever again. If you're not careful, of course. If you're not connected. But I'm pretty sure that's all I wanted to talk about in regards to the Wizards. Kyle Kuzma is Kyle Kuzma. I don't really have any problem with him. He's just an average NBA player. I don't. It's not like he's terrible. He's defensively. I wouldn't love him on a roster, although he has length and some size. You saw Jason Tatum just take him downhill to the lane, dunk all over him earlier, no problem. Outside of that, Corey Kispert, he was 9 of 14 tonight, 3 of 6. The Wizards have a ton of guys who could contribute elsewhere, but all linked on this team. It just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And another player, too, I believe, 7 of 13 tonight, Tyus Jones. Just solid NBA career up to this point. Already almost a decade into his NBA career all of a sudden. And Tyus Jones, he's playing with an awful team, played with, of course, a playoff team in the Memphis Grizzlies, continues to own one of the best turnover to assist ratios in the entire NBA, or assist to turnover ratios rather, which means he essentially throws I think it's like 7. He throws like 7 assists for every 1 turnover, which is just absolutely insane. But Tyus Jones, he's laced on this Washington Wizards squad. It's absolutely awful squad, and I just feel bad for a lot of these players because I do believe a lot of them could be contributing elsewhere, and all of a sudden they're just grouped together on this Washington Wizards team who attain all these assets from elsewhere, selling their old contending carcass of a contender squad with Bradley Beal, of course, Kristaps Porzingis, traded to them for Spencer Dinwiddie. Of course, back to the Celtics and for Muscala and Gallinari. So you have all these swapped assets that are just going around everywhere for the Wizards, and you all of a sudden have this mess of a team, but you still have some of these players who could be valuable if they're on a team elsewhere that makes sense for them and for their skill set. Right now, there's a lot of just weird overlap and just not a lot of experience and a lot of bad play on the Washington Wizards on both ends of the floor, whether it's these guys aren't executing, these guys can't execute because of their ability, or they're just completely outmatched because of the talent on the floor. But I believe these other players, a lot of the players on the Washington Wizards roster, I think they can succeed elsewhere. But right now, it's tough going for a lot of them going into the second half of the season because every player we saw tonight, they're going to be there unless they're waived in the second half of the season, which is unlikely at this point. They're going to be with the Washington Wizards, and they're not going to make the playoffs, and a lot of these players' careers are going to be somewhat in limbo after this season if they're not under a long-term deal. And even if they are, they could be the Washington Wizards looking to ship them elsewhere. But the Celtics face the Wizards, and they'll see the Wizards a couple more times this season. They're part of the Celtics' soft back end of the schedule. The Celtics do have a little bit of a gauntlet coming up on their schedule after this stretch right here between the Grizzlies, the Hawks, and the Wizards. The Celtics do have a little bit of a gauntlet coming up, but the schedule later on in time does lighten up, and we do see the Wizards a couple more times. So we'll be talking about this team more for certain. But tonight, the Celtics, they beat the Washington Wizards 133 to 129 on the Garden floor. And this one was not great. Not amazing. You saw the lead track earlier. Not the best of games at all for the Washington Wizards. Well, the Washington Wizards and the Boston Celtics. But the Boston Celtics, you have to give them some credit for coming out with a win tonight because despite their less than ideal play in a lot of games in January and February so far, they've been coming out with wins. I don't get the same vibe as last season, as 2022 and 2023. I know a lot of people all of a sudden are bringing up, we look like that 2022-23 squad. If we're on from 3, we look great. And if we're off from 3, we look awful. We look a lot like that squad. But I believe that squad, they leaned a lot more on the 3-point line than this squad for sure. The 22-23 squad, certainly was more perimeter oriented based than this Celtics team, because we do have Kristaps Porzingis. If we can get those mismatches down in the lower post, that is an identity the Celtics can form within their offense, at least one of them outside of Tatum and Brown. The Celtics having that look this season, I believe that alleviates a lot of the problems we saw last season with the team. And there were stretches last season, 2022-23, where in between that Warriors win, that crazy overtime win against the Warriors last year at home, if anybody remembers that game, that was amidst a stretch where the Celtics could have seen, I believe it was 7 or 8 losses in a row. They had 3 losses in a row before that game. They won that game, and they lost their next 2. I'm not sure if they lost another one after that. But if it would have either been a 7 or 8 game losing streak. You don't see one of those streaks on the schedule this season for the Celtics. You see a lot of wins. You see every now and then, oh, you might have this bad loss in here. And yes, there are. This last half of January, there are more inexcusable losses than the rest of the entire season. The one inexcusable loss we saw coming into the second half of January was at Charlotte. And even that was the second night of a back-to-back after playing in Memphis. So you can kind of put some leeway into that. But yes, there are some inexcusable games at the end of this month. But there are a lot of wins in between where the Celtics, yes, they could have let the rope go, and we saw in moments against, oh my goodness, we're going to lose against the Pelicans. Oh my goodness, the Wizards, we're losing against the Wizards right now. Oh my goodness, we won. We won. We won. We won the game. The Hawks the other night, oh my goodness, we won the game. We won the game. And last season, there were moments where we're going, oh my goodness, the Celtics, oh my goodness. And we lost. And we're going, it's not like that this year. In the moments we're going, oh, what's going on here? We come out with wins. And at the very least, for as much as we pick on this team, and I know I picked on them a lot tonight, you have to give the Boston Celtics credit for pulling out these wins, because a lot of teams could not. And I don't think we're talking enough about the Celtics' resiliency in coming through in adverse moments, like tonight where you're playing an awful Washington Wizards team. You could let the rope go, and they didn't. They came out, they won the game. They won, and that's what I like to see. But that's all I have for you guys tonight here on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. Talked a lot about the Wizards and Celtics. We'll talk a lot more about the Celtics moving ahead. Didn't talk at all about the Celtics' new addition, or additions rather, tonight. Xavier Tillman and Jaden Springer. Both of those guys will be in the lineup presumably next game, likely. Xavier Tillman and Springer both dealing with issues right now, injury issues rather. One with an ankle impingement. I believe that's Jaden Springer, and the other the knee issue, Xavier Tillman with a knee issue. So we'll see if those players actually do make their debut next game against the Miami Heat on Sunday. But the Celtics did acquire them on Thursday, or on Wednesday and Thursday, and that's something we'll have to talk about more going ahead. I didn't talk about it at all really in the show, or I didn't touch on Tillman. I didn't touch on Springer in the show. I kept it strictly Wizards Celtics this show, because we will talk a lot more about Springer and Tillman when they get back on court. And we also get our guys in here, Rob, Justin, Ian, Franco. Might even get Finn in here as well, talking about the Celtics trades and how they're going to shape up as the season rolls along, the second half of the season progresses. The Celtics, though, pick up a win tonight on the Garden floor, 133-129 over the Washington Wizards, their first win after the NBA trade deadline. It's always great to see a win going into the deadline and coming out of the deadline, and the Celtics do that this season and do it against two opponents who, not the greatest in the standings right now, but I don't think I forgot about the Washington Wizards and Atlanta Hawks rivalries from the late 2010s with the Celtics. It's a rough go for those squads right now, and the Celtics come out with back-to-back wins against the Hawks and the Wizards. But that is going to be all from me tonight here on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. Like I always say, thank you all for listening. I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo, and go Celtics.